是 Sposato， 我的名字是 Nicola， 我常开门 cuando人来。 That's the extent of my Chinese. Sorry. Hi Martina, I hope your trip is going well. I'm from the Cayman Islands. It's a group of 3 small islands located between Jamaica and Cuba, with around about 70,000 people for a population. That's all 3 islands combined. Cayman is such a small place, it's easy to get a sense of community from everywhere you go. We bring this sense of community into our business matters as well as personal matters. What about the course was the fact that it built on prior knowledge from the Mandarin 101 course. The Mandarin course focused more on the language than the people and the customs that we will be exposed to when we go to China as managers. So, what does Cayman have in common with China? Wow, we actually have a lot in common. The one thing that I know we have in common is the fact that you need to know somebody to get ahead in business there. For example, in Cayman, when you go, it's easy for an expat to set up a business, to come and invest, whatever, but the government makes it a lot harder to stay in Cayman. For instance, we have a law that states that any expat-owned business must have at least 50% of the employees being Caymanian. Now, that's quite a lot of people, considering some of these corporations can go to the size of about 20,000 people. But as long as your offices are in Cayman, you need to have at least 50% Caymanians working in an office. If you actually happen to know somebody, that makes your life a lot easier, just like it will in China. If you know a government official that can help you out and get some of your employees Caymanian status holder papers, then that makes your life 10 times easier because you can claim that these status holders that you've not hired are actually technically Caymanian, and therefore you're not breaking the law by having a ton of expats in your office. Living somewhere so small, you kind of have to know someone to get something done anyway, so that's why I'm really familiar with the concept of guanxi. Except in the case of Cayman, I don't think you actually have to pay someone back once they've done a favor for you. It's more of like just something that we do. But I understand the concept of guanxi because you build relationships, you get to know people, and therefore you get connections. It's like networking without all the hassle. And I think in the case of China, it's not meant to be networking, it's meant to just build your connections and hopefully grow that way as you grow a business, like you would in the Western sense. What I really enjoyed learning throughout the course was the fact that the Chinese are now mixing the traditional values of Confucianism with more modern values. Like they still make everything about the family and about honor and learning to be a good person overall. But they do still find ways of taking modern, not inventions, but modern ways of thinking, like human resources into account, because they have learned that they are dealing with in a global world. They're dealing with Western countries as well as Eastern countries, so they have to learn to mix a bit of both, and I think they've done a really good job in that. They don't shun the West like most Eastern countries do. They've started to embrace it after being secular for a really long time. They're now learning that mixing with the West is not a bad thing in particular. In fact, it's really good for business. But the most interesting part of the course was finding out that there was a skill shortage in China. I mean, a skill shortage. One of the biggest countries in the world has a skill shortage, but I guess it makes sense because much of the population isn't very well educated, and those who are educated are very driven by theories instead of practical knowledge, which we've learned in the West to be one of the most useful things. But the way that they're taught in China is through a lot of theories, and they never disagree with anyone. It seems to be part of their nature. Thank you so much for giving this course. I'm not sure if I'll actually be a manager in China, but if I make it there someday, I'll know exactly what to do. 谢谢老师 Sposato, 再见.